Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.
Hello everyone and welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Adam Lemerise and with me is Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. A special shout out to our Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, Michelle, and Robin. Thank you for investing in Grid Network. Link to our Patreon in the video description below. And please, feel free to comment in the chat room below and ask any questions. Tonight we'll discuss a major project delayed by the NTT IndyCar series, Max Verstappen cashing in, Matt White's grid history update, and a preview of the 2022 Repco Supercars Championship season, which kicks off this weekend at Sydney Motorsport Park in Australia. Kobe, we'll start off discussing the big development coming out of the NTT IndyCar series.
Yes, Adam, definitely a big development indeed. And citing ongoing global supply line challenges with some hybrid system components, IndyCar made the tough decision to delay its brand new engine that was set to debut next year. The hybrid powertrain has been pushed back to 2024 instead, so the current 2.2-liter twin turbocharged V6 engine will continue into the 2023 season. Now in 2024, that will be replaced by a 2.4-liter twin turbocharged V6 engine with hybrid technology. IndyCar came to the decision after consulting with current manufacturers Chevrolet and Honda, with rumors still swirling that Toyota will return to IndyCar in a couple of years to become the long-awaited third engine supplier. In the photo you see right here on the screen of Takuma Sato testing at Sebring, taken by James Black from Penske Entertainment. Adam, is IndyCar taking the smart approach here, delaying another year?
Yeah, I think they are. You mentioned that they're going to be testing this at the end of the month at Sebring, and there's so many really good drivers now in IndyCar, and when this new engine package comes in 2024, I think it'll give everyone a fresh, clean start, and it's going to be interesting to see what drivers' reactions will be when the 2024 NTT IndyCar series comes about. So I like what IndyCar is doing, and I think, yeah, they were smart in delaying it.
I totally agree with you. Really smart to do this, especially if you have this major issue with supplies, and you don't want to bank on the fact that you're going to hope they get that figure out later on in the year so you can continue on. I'd rather be 110% sure that I can get all the supplies so we can have a full field ready to go at the start of the 2023 IndyCar season. And if they decided to move ahead next year and we get to the second half of the year and we're still having these global supply line issues, then IndyCar would be in a lot of trouble heading into next season. So I think they made the absolute correct decision to delay this another year. And IndyCar president Jay Fry says IndyCar is pleased with the pace of the technical development of the new engine formula. And while that's encouraging, IndyCar felt like a decision had to be made to ensure all teams would be well prepared for 2023. And looking at the new 2.4-liter engine, it's going to produce 800 horsepower. And if you include the hybrid powertrain, that's an additional 100 horsepower, bringing us up to a whopping 900 horsepower. And there's been criticism of the current chassis with the IndyCar that is more like a junior formula car, but when you add more horsepower, more technology, and a new chassis down the road, moving on from the DW12, at some point we'll have to move on from that. All of that, when you add all that together, it's quite a welcome sight. So, how important is it for IndyCar's future to make sure they get the next generation of IndyCar racing right?
Oh, it's very, very important. You you were mentioning it's going to be 900 horsepower. With this new engine package in 2024. You know, it's smart what they're doing. It's very important. And you were mentioning the global supply chains that are happening. So it's really important, and I can't wait to see what drivers' reactions are. When after the test in Sebring.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what all the drivers have to say. And a few hours before it went on air tonight, I was reading an article Racer.com by Marshall Pruitt where he interviewed several of the drivers talking about the new engine that's been bumped back to 2024. The drivers really think the engine's a good thing, but when you add it on with the current DW12 chassis and the heavy weight added by the aero screen and all of that, it seems like the balance is a little bit off. So it might be in IndyCar's best interest to try to introduce the new engine and the new chassis, the next generation IndyCar, at the same time, so both components can go extremely well together. As based on those comments I saw, it seems like putting the new engine in the current chassis IndyCar may not be the best idea. It might be best for them to just introduce both at the same time. New engine, new chassis can go racing, and all of those complaints that the current IndyCar is more like a junior formula car can go away if they get all of that squared away.
Yeah, Kobe, I agree with what you said. And now switching over to some other motorsports news. SRX announced more drivers for the 2022 season. Last year's inaugural SRX champion, Tony Stewart, will return full-time and defend his title. Haley Deegan will return for 2 races at Stafford Speedway in Connecticut and I-55 Speedway in Peabody, Missouri. Now, a new driver is joining the series. You saw him with Mike Joy and Clint Boyer in the Fox booth for the NASCAR Cup race at Auto Club Speedway last weekend. Well, NASCAR Cup Series champion and 2-time Daytona 500 champion Matt Kenseth from Wisconsin joins SRX this summer for 3 races at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway in Tennessee, I-55 Speedway in Peabody, Missouri, and Sharon Speedway in Ohio. And the graphic you see on the screen, courtesy of SRX. And next, here's Kobe with some news about last year's Formula One World Champion.
2021 Formula One World Champion Max Verstappen signed a 5-year contract extension with Red Bull through the 2028 season. So almost taking him to the end of the decade there. And after winning his first title last year, Verstappen said it was an easy decision to stay with Red Bull. While Red Bull didn't go into specifics about the contract, Joe Pompliano from Huddle Up reported that Max's new deal could be worth over $50 million annually. Yes, I said it. $50 million. And adding that up would be about $2.4 million per Formula One Grand Prix event, making Verstappen one of the highest paid athletes, not just in Formula One, not just in motorsports, but one of the highest paid athletes in the world. So, Adam, with Verstappen locked down long term, how much will he accomplish with Red Bull until his contract runs out at the end of 2028?
That's a good question, Kobe. And, I'm going to say that Max Verstappen wins a couple more Formula One world titles. We know Lewis Hamilton is probably at the end of his career. after everything he's accomplished with 7 F1 titles. We saw what happened last year, all season long, between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. I think when Lewis Hamilton does decide to retire from Formula One, I think Max Verstappen will be the new face of F1. And let our viewers know there was preseason testing in Barcelona, and the Mercedes were faster than the Red Bulls. So even though it's just preseason testing, and I know there's a new car this year in F1, I think the intense battle will continue between Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes and Max Verstappen at Oracle Red Bull Racing. I think Max Verstappen, I'll go on a limb. I'll say Max Verstappen wins at least 2 more titles with this new contract until 2028.
Yeah, Adam, I think that's a fair number to assume that Max Verstappen maybe 2-3 more Formula One World Championships between that time. I think that's certainly doable for Max, and it'd be interesting to see how his relationship with Red Bull is through that time. Because I know as time goes on, sometimes driver and team grow apart. I'm wondering during that stretch, is Max Verstappen and Red Bull going to start to grow apart, and he'll want to go somewhere else, or Red Bull will want to move on? Obviously, it's way too soon to say that now, but wow, that deal is stunning. Like I said, taking him almost to the end of the 2020s decade, and while we're unsure how much the contract is worth, if Joe Pompliano's reporting is correct that it's $50 million annually, that would be absolutely massive. It just shows you how much Red Bull values Max Verstappen. They don't want him going off to Mercedes. They don't want him going off to Ferrari. They want him to stay at Red Bull, build that legacy with the team, and try to accomplish as much as they can together in Formula One. And next, a more serious story. All week long, if you've been watching us here on the Grid Network, we've been bringing you updates about the Russia invasion into Ukraine. So here's a motorsport story to share with you. Igor Skuz, a touring car racer from Ukraine, is currently in the country's capital city, Kyiv, with his family. In a statement from Motor Racing UK magazine, Skuz says the Russian military are firing cruise missiles at residential buildings. Also, the cars used in the Ukraine Touring Cars Championship were destroyed in a shelling attack. While racing is obviously the last thing on Igor's mind and our minds as well, as you can see in the photo, like many Ukraine civilians, he's armed and ready to fight for the future of his country. And Grid Network will keep Igor and his family and everyone affected by the war in our thoughts, and we wish everyone the best. And if we do get any future updates about Igor, we'll be sure to pass them along to our audience. Photo you see on the screen and information courtesy of Motor Racing UK magazine. Slava Ukraine, that means glory to Ukraine in their native language. The phrase that's constantly been repeated by Ukrainians in hopes their homeland will be defended until the very end to protect their freedom and their democracy. Next, here's Matt White with a Grid History update.
Hi everyone, Matt White here from Grid_History. We'll talk about that in a moment. It's time for this week's World Motorsport Results Roundup. Things you may have missed from the weekend. We'll start on the snow, because of course it was WRC in Sweden at the weekend. Kalle Rovanperä getting his 3rd career win in the WRC and moves himself into the championship lead as the World Rally Championship heads into somewhat sort of a break now. No more rallies for them until we get to April when they touch down in Croatia. And hopefully with the world looking the way it is at the moment, we can get to do that rally in 4 or 5 weeks' time. Stateside, plenty of stuff going on. We'll start in St. Petersburg, where of course Penske's 2022 role continued, with Scott McLaughlin winning for the first time in IndyCar competition at St. Petersburg. What a terrific race that was. Great numbers as well for TV audiences for IndyCar come out as well this week, so that's all good. Scott getting his first victory in St. Pete in his now 2nd year in the category. Wasn't the only show in town, of course, at St. Petersburg at the weekend. There was one Indy Lights race. Sunday morning was won by returnee to the championship, Matt Brabham. Probably would have been a big story if it wasn't for McLaughlin getting the win in the afternoon, so congratulations to Matty on that victory. A couple of support races as well in Indy Pro. Josh Green and Nolan Siegel got a victory each in the Indy Pro Championship, and in USF 2000 there was wins for Chase Denmark and Miles Rowe. Back in action, of course, in a couple of weeks' time for those championships as we head on through the season. At Auto Club, of course, Pat's stand as it was. Kyle Larson, we know, snatching the victory late in the Cup race, and Cole Custer after triple overtime getting the victory in Xfinity. Grid history continues to roll on, and we've had some supercars, we've had some IndyCar, we've had some WRC this week, and we've got some MotoGP coming, and of course, MotoGP back with us at the weekend. We'll be talking all about that across the weekend in pre-race and post-race, with MotoGP's return for 2022 in Qatar, and Supercars kicks off at Sydney under the lights for 2 races at the weekend. We'll be bringing you in this slot, of course, next week, all the action from the support, the news and results from the support races at SMP, as well as all those other bits and pieces going on across the weekend. Back with you next week. Don't forget to check out Grid_History, and if you haven't subscribed to the Grid Network on any of the social platforms, make sure you do so.
Thanks, Matt. As you just said, the 2022 Repco Supercars Championship season gets underway this weekend at Sydney Motorsport Park for the Sydney Super Night. 2-time Supercars champion Shane Van Gisbergen looking to win his 3rd title this year and go back-to-back. Some potential championship contenders: Chaz Mostert, last year's Bathurst 1000 champion with co-driver Lee Holdsworth. Walkinshaw Andretti United finished the 2021 season strong. Another driver who finished strong last year was Antoine De Pasquale. 6 wins with 5 of those victories coming at Sydney Motorsport Park during such an unusual 2021 season when we raced there for almost an entire month. And if you took away De Pasquale's 5 retirements and a disqualification last year, he would have been much closer in points to SVG. De Pasquale's teammate Will Davison is consistent, but he hasn't shown the capability yet taking over a race for Dick Johnson Racing. Then you have Cam Waters, very inconsistent. He could make some noise if he can finally get some momentum. Go on one race for Cam Waters, he's hot. In other races, he's cold water. Adam, does Shane Van Gisbergen have a high likelihood of repeating as champion, or could any one of the drivers I mentioned dethrone him?
Well, first of all, it's good to see the Repco Supercars Championship back in 2022. If you don't know, the series was supposed to have started on the streets of Newcastle, but that race got postponed to a later date. So here we are once again at Sydney Motorsport Park. Shane Van Gisbergen this year is going to have a big target on his back. And you mentioned some really good drivers that could knock him off that pedestal. Anton De Pasquale, he's a championship threat. Cam Waters, Monster Energy Racing, he's also a threat. And you mentioned Chaz Mostert for Walkinshaw and Andretti United. We saw what happened last year at the Bathurst 1000 with this co-driver Lee Holdsworth, like you mentioned, Kobe. Chaz Mostert is going to be a championship contender. Don't be surprised if we get toward the end of the season, it's Shane Van Gisbergen, Chaz Mostert, Anton De Pasquale, and Cam Waters battling out for the 2022 Repco Supercars Championship. And Ian says, who is Shane Van Gisbergen? Well, he is a 2-time Repco Supercars champion. He comes from the country of New Zealand. He drives for Red Bull and Pole Racing. He has been in the Repco Supercar Series for a long time. He started out at Stone Brothers Racing, which is no longer around. And he is just one of the most talented drivers that we've seen in the Repco Supercars Championship. Been a long, long time. And to give our viewers a heads up, the weather this weekend isn't looking too good. If you haven't been following the news, there have been devastating flooding going on in Australia. And this weekend at Sydney Motorsport Park, I believe the forecast is for, rain, more rain. So you could see Shane Van Gisbergen come out on top in one or both of the races. he is a master in the wet. And also to let our viewers know, this year the Repco Supercars Championship will be going back to Simmons Plains Raceway in Tasmania. Other scheduled news is Bathurst 1000 will take place at its traditional date, the first weekend in October. Going back to the Gold Coast in Surfers Paradise. So hopefully this year we get a complete 2022 Repco Supercars Championship at all these different tracks instead of just going to Sydney Motorsport Park like we did in the 2021 season. So be sure to stick with us here at Grid Network, and as we provide coverage all season long of the Repco Supercars Championship.
Yeah, it's really exciting that the Supercar season is back and that we're going to be going to a whole bunch of different racetracks. Because last year was a little frustrating because we had started the normal schedule, then we had the long pause because of COVID got much worse, and then we ended up spending an entire month at Sydney Motorsport Park, and here we are again at Sydney Motorsport Park. To be honest, I haven't truly recovered from the last time we were there, but it is what it is. But there's a lot to look forward to this year, assuming COVID doesn't get any worse. Then we can keep moving to all these different tracks down under, and ENS, who is Shane Van Gisbergen. Adam did a good job explaining that, and I also like to add that Shane Van Gisbergen is one of the top drivers from down under, and he's a highly respected race car driver all over the world, in Europe, in the United States. A lot of people know who Shane Van Gisbergen is because he's quite a driver behind the wheel. And I know Shane said when the COVID situation gets better and countries start to open up their borders, he does want to travel and do some more sports car racing in Europe, potentially GT World Challenge Europe, or maybe we could see him in the World Endurance Championship. And I'm sure a lot of the American fans would like to see him racing in IMSA again. He ran in the GTD class a couple of times, really fast in anything he gets in. And we're also gonna see him later this year in the Bathurst 12-hour endurance race, a race that he typically runs annually. And to get back to the question, what we were talking about, if Shane Van Gisbergen has a high likelihood of repeating as a champion, I think he has an extremely high chance of getting another championship. But I think Chaz Monster is going to be really strong, and Anton De Pasquale was really coming into his own at the end of last season. I think with the year of experience with the Shelby Power team under his belt, that he's going to do some incredible things this year, and I think he's going to be in contention more often. As mentioned, Cam Waters, you don't know what Cam Waters you're going to get in the race, hot water or cold water. And if it can be a lot more hot water, then I think Cam Waters can certainly be a true championship contender. And while SVG is sticking around with the same team, there are some major changes in the works at Triple Eight, Red Bull, and Pole Racing. Legendary driver Jamie Whincup has retired from full-time driving, but he's still with Triple Eight in a management role, and replacing him is last year's Super 2 champion, the youngster Brock Feeney, who ran the Bathurst 1000 in December. He ran well during the race until a crash put him out. Just an unfortunate rookie mistake. Same team, same number as Whincup in the number 88. So Brock Feeney has some major shoes to fill, and he's also Shane Van Gisbergen teammate, which is only going to add to the pressure. So do you think, when looking at Brock Feeney, can he handle all the pressure in his rookie season? It seems like he has an enormous amount of pressure on him.
Yeah, he got a lot of pressure, Kobe. He's taking over a seat that's occupied by one of the best all-time Repco Supercars Championship drivers in history, and Jamie Whincup. But I think Brock will do good. I think he'll finish in the top 10 in points. I think he will have some top 5s and top 10s. When, a lot of the viewers know, a lot of the tracks that the Dunlop Super 2 Series runs at are the same tracks as the Repco Supercar Championship runs at. So Brock does have a lot of experience at these tracks. So even though he's in a Repco Supercar Championship car compared to the Dunlop Super 2 car he ran last year, he's got a lot of momentum going for him, and I think he'll do good. Wins could happen, but could happen, but if Brock Feeney is in the seat for a long time, don't be surprised if Shane Van Gisbergen don't be surprised if Shane Van Gisbergen has a teammate battling for him for the championship, Brock Feeney, years to come.
Yeah, definitely see Brock Feeney battling with Shane Van Gisbergen for the championship in the years to come. I'm not going to say that's going to be the case this year. It'd be a tall order for him to be rookie in supercars and really take the fight to SVG and win that championship this year. I'm thinking the championship battle between both drivers, SVG is going to win that by far, by a lot. But I think Brock Feeney, like you said, I think wins could certainly happen. He's in one of the best cars in the entire series. He's a young driver, very talented, lots of upside. A lot of people think potentially he could become one of the future stars and faces of supercars in the future because of the talent that he has. I think there's definitely going to be pressure on Brock to perform this year, but we also have to remember the fact that Brock is a rookie, and we have to give them time to develop. Although nowadays it seems like we want to just rush rookies, and if they don't perform in year one, they automatically think they're not good. But that's actually not the case. Sometimes you need to give them 2-3 years to really get everything down pat, and then once they get everything figured out, then they can really take off. But I think Brock Feeney, although there's going to be pressure replacing a legend like Jamie Whincup, he's certainly going to be able to do it, and I think great things are in store for Brock Feeney's future. And after winning the Bathurst 1000 with Chaz Mostert, Lee Holsworth returns to supercars full-time at Grove Racing. His spectacular drive on Mount Panorama put him in position to get the seat, showed many people he still had what it takes to get the job done. Out of a full-time ride, get a competitive seat for the series crown jewel race on a one-off, maximize that opportunity, leading to a brand new job. And that's the playbook Fabian Coulthard will try to follow this season. Since Team Penske left supercars with Scott McLaughlin at the end of 2020, Fabian Coulthard lost his drive at Dick Johnson Racing, and he drove for Team Sydney in 2021. The owners of Team Sydney sold the organization and has been rebranded as Prima Air Racing. The new team owner chose Chris Pivler as his driver, leaving Coulthard without a full-time drive for the 2022 season. After banning the good DJR equipment, having the ability to fight for race wins and good finishes, Coulthard found himself in a different position running with Team Sydney. He was in equipment that was not competitive at all, and while at Dick Johnson Racing, finishing 10th might be considered a bad day, especially when your teammate is Scott McLaughlin. But trying to finish 10th in the ride he was in last year was an uphill climb, and just finishing 10th would have been a win for Team Sydney. And this year, while he won't be racing full-time in supercars, Coulthard signed with Walkinshaw and Andretti United for the Bathurst 1000. Like Holsworth, same team, a big opportunity to do well in competitive equipment, and who knows what the future holds after that. Adam, is this a good move for Fabian Coulthard?
Yeah, it is. And you brought up Scott McLaughlin, and there have been rumors speculating that he wasn't able to get to compete at the Bathurst 1000 last year, but if he gets his chance, he could return to compete in the great race. I don't know what team he'll drive for, but I like Fabian Coulthard. At least he'll get a chance, even though he's a co-driver at Walkinshaw Andretti United for the Bathurst 1000. The other co-driver will be supercar driver and longtime Bathurst 1000 competitor Warren Luff is the other co-driver signed for the Bathurst 1000. Even though Fabian Coulthard doesn't have a full-time seat, we could see what happened. Likely Holsworth. Fabian is talented. Loads of experience competing in the Repco Supercars Series, and to see him not have a full-time drive this year, a lot of fans are probably disappointed. But hopefully, maybe next year, if he has success at the Bathurst 1000, like we saw Lee Holsworth do, he could appear in a full-time ride next year. At least we get to see him compete at the Bathurst 1000 in October.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting to see how Fabian Coulthard is going to perform at Walkinshaw and Andretti United. But I know one thing, he's going to be excited to be in a much more competitive ride. He's going to be out there to compete for the win, top 5, top 10. Because in the other ride, he was in Team Sydney, which is no longer around. He didn't have that opportunity. He was basically just riding around just to stay in the series, if I'm being perfectly honest. So at Fabian Coulthard, a year out of full-time supercars racing, but at least he can put all his focus on this race at the end of the year to try to go win the Bathurst 1000, the same way that Lee Holsworth did. And before I move on to the next section, have some comments in the chat room by Ian Caldwell saying that there's reporting that Nikita Mazepin has left Haas and will be replaced by Antonio Giovinazzi and not Pietro Fittipaldi. Well, Ian, we really appreciate you for sharing that. And when we get the official word from Haas F1, you can be sure to come back here and we'll be discussing and analyzing whatever move Haas decides to make here on Grid Network. And another question from Ian saying, "Are you just reading that off a piece of paper?" Well, Ian, like any good motorsports journalists do, we have our notes off to the side here, prepared to go. Make sure we're prepared to answer all the questions and analyze the stuff the best way that we can in the most responsible manner. And towards the end of last season, Erebus Motorsport and their drivers turned heads. Will Brown and Brody Kostecki were very competitive down the stretch. Brown got his first career win. Good results for Kostecki, a team on the rise, and two drivers who have plenty of upside. Erebus, Brown, Kostecki. Will they take that next step in 2022?
Yeah, I believe they will. And Ian, I'll let you know that Kobe and I have a script that we follow, for Grid Tonight, and as well as our other shows here at Grid Network. So and going back to your question, Kobe, Brody Kostecki is a well-talented driver. Will Brown is a well-talented driver. I think we'll see Will Brown in victory lane this year. Brody Kostecki, we saw him win last year. Erebus Motorsports, like you mentioned, toward last season, they got very competitive at Sydney Motorsports Park. Well, we go back there to kick off the 2022 season this weekend. So we could see what we saw last year in Erebus Motorsports, up there competing for the race win, along with Will Brown and Brody Kostecki. Like I said, it's going to be a wet weekend, lots of rain. So it's going to be interesting to see how everything develops at Sydney Motorsports Park under the lights. What a way to kick off the 2022 season under the lights. Now that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool kicking off the season under the lights. And I was really impressed by Erebus Motorsport, Will Brown and Brody Kostecki during that final stretch of the season. I know Erebus Motorsport had a little issues in the pits. A lot of people are criticizing them. We'll see if they got that figured out over the offseason, clean up some of the mistakes that they were making. And if they can do that, I believe they can certainly put both of their drivers in the position to get some decent points. And I'm not sure if I say they're going to be contending for the championship, but certainly in a position to get some race wins. I think Will Brown is certainly going to be a featured star in supercars, and I think at some point he's definitely gonna be one of the championship contenders. Yeah, that was a special win for him last year at Sydney Motorsport Park. Brody Kostecki had quite a drive in the closing stages of the Bathurst 1000, and I think he can potentially get the job done as well. But if you're Erebus Motorsport, you have to be really excited about your driver lineup. You have two young drivers with a lot of upside who can go out there and get the job done. And overall, I believe they can take the next step and knock out several victories. I know a lot of people expect Shane Van Gisbergen can probably win most of the races. Maybe Brock Feeney here and there, Antoine De Pasquale getting a handful, but I'm sure that's going to be room in the pot for Will Brown and Brody Kostecki to get a piece as well. And next, Adam, you know what time it is.
Yep, I sure do, Kobe. It's time for Pick a Winner. And we take a look at the leaderboard here. Kobe's on top with 3 after his pick. Kyle Larson won the NASCAR Cup race at Fontana. Tied for second are me and Ben Schneider, and we have a log jam through the rest of the top 10. And if you want to play Pick a Winner, use the hashtag Pick a Winner on social media. You can see your name on our leaderboard. But now it's time Kobe and I, to make our picks for the first race of the 2022 Repco Supercar season. Like I said a lot tonight, it's going to be a wet weekend. And there's a lot of good supercar drivers that do really good in the wet. So if you want to make your picks, that's a little heads up. For me, your Repco Supercars expert here at Grid Network. So, Kobe, I'll start with you. At the end of the checkered flag, early Saturday morning here in the United States, who takes race 1 of the 2022 Repco Supercars Championship season?
And before I give my pick, we have some comments in the chat room from Andrew. Said Shane Van Gisbergen for $1.90. Mozzie, who is Chaz Monster, for $5.50, and Antoine D. Pasquale for $7.50. I'm not really sure what all of that means, Andrew. I'm not sure if you guys are betting like we do in Vegas or anything like that, but I'm gonna go with Shane Van Gisbergen to win the season opening race, and believe that'll certainly kick off his title defense. And I believe he's going to have quite a strong weekend in Sydney.
Yeah, I have to agree with Kobe. I think Shane Van Gisbergen starts off strong and wins race 1 under the lights at Sydney Motorsport Park. He's really good in the wet, and that could be a big advantage to him. And now, Kobe, it's time to wrap up. And he said this is the tab odds for the championship. I think that's in Australia. If I'm right, Andrew, let us know in the comments. And he says Giz is the overwhelming favorite for the season. Yeah, that's a good. I have to agree with that. I think he is a good favorite, to go back to back in this year's Repco Supercars Championship. Long season ahead of us, so it's gonna be interesting to see. SVG has a big target on his back after last year. We'll see if anyone can knock him off the top step of the podium. Kobe, another edition of Grid Tonight is in the books.
Yeah, another edition of Grid Tonight in the books, and that's 2 episodes of Grid Tonight this week. Also, want to remind our viewers, we did a special report on a special episode of Grid Tonight yesterday during our regular time. It was about the Russia invasion into Ukraine and the impact it had on the motorsports world. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel if you're interested in checking out that video. It was really had a lot of fun putting that together and telling you the story of everything that's going on in the world, especially in Russia and Ukraine. And as we said, we're out of time for tonight. So please be sure to like and subscribe to the Grid Network here on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We encourage you to take 5 minutes after our show and consider joining our Patreon. Invest in Grid Network to keep us on the air well into the future. Do you want to buy me a coffee? Click the link in the video description below, and you can buy a drink for your favorite on-air talent at Grid Network. I want to give a big thank you to Edward Hunter from formerly E-Zone, Amber, and Zachary for buying us one. We greatly appreciate that. And any amount will help us continue growing our motorsports media outlet in the future. Visit public.com, also known as the stock market social media home. The link below and referral code gives you $5 to invest immediately. Public.com will allow you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to properly learn how to invest in the stock market. And looking at our schedule for the next few days, tomorrow morning, Friday, a new episode of Women in Motorsports. Joe and Daniel Zeri from Racers the Girls Behind the Helmet will be given a recap of Tatiana Calderon's IndyCar debut in the Firestone Grand Prix in St. Petersburg, Florida, and also some highlights from W Series testing from Barcelona. Then Saturday, back on the air in the afternoon for Grid Live pre-race. Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. For Adam Lemerise, I'm Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.